In this video, we are going to set relationships between our feature layers and tables and between our feature layers using the ArcGIS API for Python. This will allow us to relate the information amongst our data sets, and we'll see how this information can be shown in pop-ups. So open up the relationships.py script from the relationships folder. As of the time of recording this video, there's currently no way to define relationships through the interface in ArcGIS Online. The only way to do it is to manipulate the JSON definition for each feature layer and table. We've seen this before when we were adding fields to our feature layers and tables using the FeatureLayerManager added definition. We're going to follow suit to add relationships. We're going to add one-to-one and one-to-many relationships. We first access ArcGIS Online using our GIS class and supplying it in our home string. We'll assign our GIS object to a variable called AGOL. We'll then use our GIS object and the content manager get method supplying in our feature service item ID, which I'm going to paste in now from my notepad. The get method will return an item object that will assign to a variable called item. Our item object will allow us to iterate over the layers and tables in our feature service. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to iterate over each layer and each table and print the layer name and the table name and print out any current relationships that are set on that feature layer or table. We access the relationships through the feature layer or table object, properties property, and then the relationships property from the properties returned. So let me run this script now. The script is complete, and we can see that for each feature layer and table that we returned an empty list for the relationships. So there are no relationships set on our feature layers or tables as of yet. I'm going to pop on over to ArcGIS Online. Here I have the Park Trails feature service that we've been working on throughout this course. I'm going to go into the visualization tab. We can see the data that we added in the previous section. I go to the layers on the left hand side, and with Park Trails trail viewpoints active, over on the right I can click pop-ups, and if I go to add content, we can see there is nothing there to add related records because there is no relationship set on that layer. And I could check this for park trails, park boundaries, and even into the tables we will get the same information that there's no relationship set. Enable pop-ups hasn't been set for our tables, and we're going to look at that in a future section when we interact with pop-ups, how to enable and disable and to configure pop-ups with the ArcGIS API for Python. Now we can see there's no related records. I'll head back over to the Python script, comment out where we're printing the relationships, and I'll open up our second example where we're going to add the relationships. So our first port of call is to define the relationships for each feature layer and table. We know that the relationships for each feature layer and table is a list, and we printed out empty lists for each one. First going to define for our park boundaries. So we have a list, and this feature layer is going to have two relationships. We're going to give the first relationship an ID of 1. We give it a name of parks and trails. So we're relating the parks boundary feature layer to our park trails feature layer. The related table ID is 1. That is the ID for our park trails. Our cardinality is Esri rel cardinality one-to-many. So one park can have many trails. The role here for our park boundaries feature layer is Esri rel role origin, and the key field is park name. So we're going to join or relate our park boundaries to the park trails based on the park name. We're going to set composite to false. So if a park boundary is deleted, that the trails aren't deleted. If we go to our park trails, we have a corresponding entry there for the park trails list. We have the matching ID of 1, and we've also set the name to be parks and trails. The related table ID is 2, which relates to our park boundaries feature layer. Cardinality is the same. It is Esri cardinality one-to-many. But this time the role is of destination rather than origin. Key field is park name because we also have a park name field in our park trails, and we set the composite to false to match the other relationship details. Our second relationship is for trails and views, and that is the same as we had for our park boundaries to our park trails. Here we set the park trails as the origin, and we set our trail views as the destination. Our third relationship is for parks and information. So we're relating the parks layer to the parks maintenance information table. The related table ID is 4, which matches our park maintenance information ID. Cardinality here is 1-to-1. Each park can only have one entry in the related table. If we go down to the park maintenance, we have a corresponding entry there in the relationship list for our park boundaries. Our fourth and last relationship is for our views and reviews. So here we're relating our trail viewpoints to the viewpoint reviews on a one-to-many basis. And we see the corresponding entry for the viewpoint reviews. Now that we have our lists containing our relationships, I'm just going to create some helper dictionaries here. We'll create a relationship layers dictionary where we have the name of each layer as the key and their relationships lists as the values. And we do the same for the tables where we have our 2 table entries as the keys and then our relationship lists as the values. Now for the main event where we want to add the relationships. So for each feature layer name and relationship definition in our relationship layers dictionary, we're going to print the feature layer name. We're then going to get the feature layer as a feature layer object. I'm going to create a variable called status. We use our feature layer object and we access the manager, which is a feature layer manager object, and we use the add to definition method that we've seen before. Here we're accessing the relationships property and we're setting it to be our relationship def for that layer. So in the first iteration, it's going to do park boundaries and then park trails and then trail viewpoints. We do the same for our tables. So for each table name and relationship definition in our relationship tables dictionary, we'll print the table name, we'll get the table object, we'll set a variable called status as our table object and the manager property, which is still a feature layer manager object, and we use the add to definition method, supplying in our relationships definition as the relationships property. We'll print status to screen. So let's run this script. Our script is complete. You can see that for each of our feature layers and our tables, we got success true, indicating that the update for our relationships was successful. Let me comment out our second example here and reopen our first example where we print out the relationships for each feature layer and table. Run the script. Our script is complete, and now look at the information that we have. For our trail viewpoints, we have 2 relationships, one for the trails and the views and one for the views and the reviews. We have our park trails, also has 2 relationships. Our park boundaries has 2 relationships. Our county boundaries does not have any relationship. Our park maintenance has 1 and our viewpoint reviews has 1. So let's head over to ArcGIS Online and check out the result and how we can add these to our pop-ups manually. But in a future video, we are going to do it programmatically. I'm going to refresh this page. Once more, we can see the data that we've added. I'm going to go to the layers. I'm going to select the trail viewpoints. On the right hand side, I'm going to click into pop-ups. And now when I click add content, I have this related records option. When I click that, I have trails and views or views and reviews. I'm going to set this one to trails and views. And then I'm going to add another related one and I can set that to the views and reviews. And we can see the pop-up over here on the left where we have the park trails that are related, and we also have our related reviews. Now nothing's coming up for these related reviews because the table for the reviews does not have enable pop-ups, but if I click that back on and now I select a viewpoint, we can see the related reviews. I go back to the layers and click on park boundaries. We also have our related records there, parks and trails. I click on a park boundary, we can see the related trails. This one has 1 related. If I click onto this one over here, Clonbelogue, that has 3 related ones. So we've the loop, the pass, and Lower Clon's Way. So we've successfully added relationships to our feature layers and tables using the ArcGIS API for Python. Make sure to continue on to the next video in this series, and also make sure to subscribe. Take care.